On today's episode of Crooked Mustache, we're going to be installing and using the electronic boost controller that you saw us unbox in a previous episode, and we'll find out if it's anything more than just an electronic bleed valve or if it truly does have everything you want from an electronic boost controller. Stay tuned. In a previous episode, you saw us unbox the $100 electronic boost controller that claims to have everything you'd find from one of the more name brands such as Greddy, GFB, or Pexi, etc. So that's what we're going to do, swap the cars over. We're going to start the installation process. I'm going to keep it short so that we can focus on the actual meat of this thing, which is the box going inside the car. This is what happens when your wife drives one of your cars and is significantly shorter than you are. So under here, so this is the piece that we're interested in, right here. This is the boost control solenoid valve from the factory. All right, now to make life simpler for myself, I've used some 1/4 inch to 3/8 adapters. I didn't have any right angle ones, and I specifically wanted right angle bends because of the way that this boost, that the N75 is oriented, with one going down and then the other 2 ports going out. So I'm gonna go right now and pull this off. I may need to take off this intake hose just to give myself some more room, and I can swap the valve out. Most importantly, in this specific application, everything I've read on the forum says that even though we're going to be running a separate boost controller, we leave the N75 connected. So now with the 3 ports exposed, I can basically connect this how I want. So while the ports on your car may vary or differ based on your application, the ports on the solenoid will remain the same. Port 3, which is the center, that is the one for the pressure source from the turbo. Port 1 is the actual relief of the actual solenoid that will either vent to atmosphere or vent back into the car's measured air system depending on your application. Port 2, that's the one going to your wastegate. So an easy way to test this is that if you blow through the solenoid itself, you should feel all the air coming out through port 2, because the fail-safe for the solenoid is to send all of the air to the wastegate, which would keep your car running at minimum boost or effectively spring pressure. This is a safety feature built into these mechanisms. As I mentioned, installing the actual head unit, here I've actually drilled a hole in so I can use a windshield mount into it. Installing the head unit is very simple. Here's your vacuum source. This is where your in my case, I have a boost gauge in the car. This is where this is going to tee off from. This will go to your solenoid. Those are the wires I have running into the car. And then one of these harnesses is the actual harness that you would use to power this up. And the only thing this needs is constant power, switched power, and ground, just like a car stereo. And with the unit completely installed on the car semi-permanently, now it's time to actually figure out all the settings, and I wanted to figure out what all the menus do before I actually set out and use the unit. I have had the unit running on the car for about a week and a half, so now let's go in through the menus. I'll explain what everything does that I've been able to figure out, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up the video. So this is what you're going to see when you first fire up the unit. Now we'll go in through the quick menus. I'm kind of filming this after, but I wanted you guys to see the actual menus themselves. This is what it's going to look like when you go through the screens. So when you click this button, this is your menu select button. This opens your menus. So if we quickly cycle through the menu, this you can see is your gain for low, your gain for high. This is your start PSI. This determines at what boost this device will actually kick on. The next setting is your warn PSI. Now I have this turned up to 14 PSI. In a nutshell, this is pretty much just kind of like a shift light for your boost. If you do hit your set boost, it will give you an auditory warning as well as flash the unit red. That's about it. The next feature, which is the limit that you see there on the screen, is my assumption where it would have been something to actually limit your boost, but unfortunately, whether I started at 0 or at 100%, I wasn't able to actually get a distinct change in the characteristics based on that input. Alright, so now that we're back in the studio, let's talk about this thing. Let's talk about the fit and finish. Depending on where you put this thing in your car, it's either going to stand out or it'll blend in. It's black ABS plastic with some chrome buttons. You can tuck this into a radio pocket, or you can make a custom enclosure, maybe like hide it where the ashtray on your car used to be, that kind of thing. The chrome on the buttons probably will start to come off with some time, I have a feeling. It's a very generic LCD display. You have your color choices. They're very RGB colors. I would have preferred to have an option for just basic white. That would have been nice. Let's talk about ease of use. The menus are very simple to understand, even without a manual. And as you do some troubleshooting, as you saw that I did in the video, you'll figure out everything. The one I haven't figured out still is that limit percent. I'm probably going to keep using it. Ease of install. Installing it could not be easier. As far as the power goes, back here on the harness, you've got 3 plugs. You're basically going to focus on the plug that's in the middle. That's your harness that provides power. That is at least on the instructions. It's basically constant power. It's constant power, switched power, and ground. Just like a car stereo. Could not be easier. This is your vacuum source where you're going to run the vacuum line in from your car off of your manifold. And because this is also going to act as your boost gauge. And then here is your solenoid harness. This is the one that you're going to run directly to the solenoid. This one probably is going to have to need to be extended. Doesn't get much harder than that. Overall, the install was very easy. I think with me, it was just a little bit more difficult because I was trying to install the solenoid where there was a factory one. So I have to make those runs that I did put in a little bit shorter and get the proper fittings rather than, you know, clamping shut some weird T-fittings that I made. There's really no way to get around it. If you look at the GFB boost controller, which is considered one of the more economic ones and is still packed full of features, that thing is still over $300 depending on the reseller or the dealer you buy it from. If you look at the Greddy one or anything else, those creep into the $400 range. If you're just running a basic system, you know, your first turbocharged car, or you just want to have some boost control over a tuned car, this works great. Much better than having just a normal bleed valve, because this will allow you to flatten your boost curve. And honestly, I think it's pretty cool having electronic control. You can change the ramp and everything. It's hard to argue with $100, considering the fact that there's manual boost controllers that are over $150 just because they have like a rod that comes through the firewall where you can have a knob that gives you in-car adjustment. This is $100 and it's electronic. Haven't had any issues with it, and it will remain in my car. I'm going to find a more discreet place to put it rather than hanging it off the windshield, but definitely worth the money, especially as a replacement for a failing solenoid valve in the car. And when I tune the car, I can basically use low as the stock power and high as the tuned power. No complaints there. Definitely worth it. Now, I have found it in a few other places, as I did mention, and I'll put links in the video description where you can find them. One is on Amazon. It's the MUSA or eMusa, however you pronounce it. I did find various sellers selling it on eBay and also on Alibaba. The other AliExpress one. That was actually the cheapest. That one was $60-something with 20-something shipping, depending on how long it takes to get it. I would definitely think it's worth a shot. If you want to buy one of the more expensive ones, go for it. That's your prerogative. That's what I was going to do until I found this, and it's your choice. Please check out the links. They're not sponsored links. They're not affiliate links. That's just where I found the product after. With that said, my name's Alfred. Thanks for watching Crooked Mustache. We'll see you next time. Dale. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us on another episode of Crooked Mustache.